Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel, and today we are going to be making some double chocolate brownies. So these are the things you're going to need: 3 large eggs. You're also going to need some unsalted butter, 200 grams, and I cut it into cubes to make it a bit easier. Next you need some cocoa powder. We've got 35 grams of that. And then you want 90 grams of plain flour. I've just got Tesco's cheapest brand Stockwell plain flour for this. We've got 2 bags of chocolate chips, so we've got some milk chocolate chips and some white chocolate chips, 100 grams of each, but you can also add in some dark chocolate chips if you fancy. We have got 200 grams of dark cooking chocolate. And last but not least, we need 275 grams of caster sugar. So the first thing I do is I weigh everything out and put them all into their individual bowls to make it much easier for myself when it comes to doing it. So I've got the chocolate chips in a bowl, I've whisked the eggs up already, we've got the cocoa powder and the flour in the same bowl. You can sieve it or not, entirely up to you. They go in at the same time. And then we have the butter and the chocolate in cubes or broken into pieces in a microwavable bowl. And lastly, we have a bowl with caster sugar in. Here are some other things that you're going to need. So we've got a plastic mixing bowl. We have got a tin to cook it in the oven. So this is around about 7.5 by 11 inches in the base. I've got a roll of grease-proof paper or non-stick baking paper. We have a pair of scissors to cut the paper with. I've got a tablespoon here as well. I also have an electric hand whisk. You don't actually need one of these, but it does make it a lot easier. So the first thing I've done is preheated my oven. Gas mark 4, 180 degrees Celsius or 356 degrees Fahrenheit. So that can be warming up whilst we're doing this. So first thing I'm going to do is measure out my greaseproof paper to fit in the tin and cut that off. I scrunch up my paper because it just doesn't fit in very easily otherwise, so I always scrunch it into a ball and then it tends to sort of fit into place a little bit easier. And once you've got the weight of the brownie mixture in there, it will obviously fit in much better. Right, now pop that to one side out of the way, and you're going to microwave your butter and your chocolate just to melt them together. So I just do them for 1 minute or 1 minute 20 to start with. Leave that going, and whilst you're doing that, you can mix in your caster sugar with your eggs. You want to make sure that your chocolate and your butter has melted before you finish this, because it needs a little bit of time for cooling before you can combine them all together. So give these a really good whisk. They take, I would say, around about 10 minutes. Give it a good whisk. I tend to do it on the fastest setting just to create loads of air bubbles so we can have some nice fluffy brownies. So our butter and chocolate have been in for a minute or so now, and we're just going to give them a little stir just to mix them together, trying to combine them a little bit more. You don't want to overcook your chocolate because it goes a little bit funny otherwise, especially in the microwave. So definitely not done yet, so we're going to pop those back in again for another minute or minute and 20. And now we're going to carry on whisking our caster sugar and eggs together. I told you it takes ages and ages to do this. And that'll be the chocolate and the butter all melted, so we can just give them a good mix together. And then once we've done that, we're going to set it aside and leave it to cool for at least 5 minutes. Back to our eggs and caster sugar now, and we're going to finish them off now. They are very close to being done. As you can see, they've got a lot paler and they're a lot fluffier as well. So we know they're nearly done. They just go a lot thicker in consistency. That is finished now, and we're going to pour in carefully our chocolate and butter mixture into our egg and caster sugar mixture, and we're just going to very carefully mix those or fold them into each other. You'll know when it's done because it will go a nice, very deep brown colour. This is around about the speed that you probably want to mix it. Do not try and do it any faster because you'll knock any nice air bubbles that you've put into the egg and caster sugar mix. So you want to keep those in there so that you can have some nice fluffy brownies. And this should be your end result. It goes, like I said, a nice deep chocolatey brown colour. So the next thing that we are going to add in is our cocoa powder and flour. Like I said, you can sieve it beforehand if you want to. I personally don't. I don't feel the need to. And again, you want to fold that in slowly as you can, just to keep those air bubbles in. I'm just checking through it now to make sure we've got no lumps of flour or cocoa powder, and then we are ready with our mixture. Add in our chocolate chips now. Like I said, we've got milk chocolate, white chocolate, but you can always add in some dark chocolate chips as well if you like. You can always add in some bits of fudge or anything like that if you want to change up your recipe a little bit. Give those a nice slow mix through, just to make sure they're a little bit more evenly spaced amongst the mixture. And you can see how lovely and deliciously rich that is, nice and silky smooth. We're now ready to put it into our tray or tin or whatever you're using to cook it in. So just pour it straight in onto the greaseproof paper. Make sure the greaseproof paper does not fold in whilst you're pouring it in, because sometimes it does do that, so I like to hold it a little bit back. Once you've got the bulk of the mixture in, the paper tends to stay in place, and then just use a spoon and scoop the rest of the mixture in so that you don't waste any little part of the brownie mixture. Next, I go in with my spoon and I try and spread out the brownie mixture evenly, pushing it into the corners. It just helps to give it a bit more of an even bake. Then I go around the paper, cutting off the excess, just because I've got a gas oven and I don't want the paper to catch fire at all, so I just make sure I trim off the excess. And we are now ready to put it in the oven. So as I said before, gas mark 4, 180 degrees Celsius, 356 degrees Fahrenheit for 28 minutes roughly. This is me checking it halfway through. I like to turn it around just to make sure it's evenly baked. There we go, this is what it looks like. Absolutely lovely. It's risen a little bit. I'm gonna check. I do check it near the end whilst it's in the oven. But I use a clean cocktail stick and just pop it in. I like it to have a little bit of mixture still on it, which means it'll be nice and gooey once it's cooked. It also goes a little bit harder once it's cooled down. I'm now going to leave it to cool completely, and then I'm going to pop it in the fridge for a couple of hours just to make sure it's nice and cooled, because it's so much easier to cut once it's cold. So cut it into however big sizes you want, really. I tend to cut them into roughly 16 pieces each time. I think this time I'm going with slightly bigger pieces. This is just one of the sections. They store really well in an airtight container in the fridge for at least a week, maybe even 2. But they don't usually last that long in our house. There you go. As you can see, nice soft gooey brownie. Very, very tasty and great for a nice little treat. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this video on how to make some lovely delicious brownies. Let me know if you try the recipe and what you think. It's not my personal recipe. I will link the original recipe in the description of the video. Hope you enjoy. Thank you so much for watching, everybody.